Hi, today we're going to add one more step onto what we were working on in Lesson 1. We are working on Unit 3, Lesson 2. I can solve multi-step equations with variables on both sides. So that means we're just adding one more step from what we were doing last week. I'm going to start by showing you how to solve this equation with inverse operation. So the first thing you have to do is you're going to look and figure out where all your variables are and all your constants. And we're going to combine those that are variables on the left side, and we're going to combine those constants on the right side. So I'm going to start, I'm going to start with the constants. I have a positive 17. That means I'm going to subtract 17 from both sides. And I end up with 5x is equal to 3x. And a negative 17 and a positive 17. I'm going to use my calculator. Negative 17 plus a negative 15 gives me the answer of negative 32. Okay. Now, I notice that I still have a variable on both sides, and I need to move that 3x over to the left side so that all the variable terms are together. That is a positive 3x, so I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. I bring down my negative 32 because I haven't done anything to it. And 5x minus 3x is equal to 2x. So I combined the like terms by adding and subtracting. Now I have to multiply or divide. Well, what are we multiplying or dividing by? We are going to divide by this coefficient in front of my variable. So I need to divide both sides by 2. And I have a negative 32 divided by 2 gives me a negative 16. So I have x is equal to negative 16. Now, I'm going to double check my work, make sure I got it right. I want to do 5 times negative 16 plus 17, and 3 times negative 16 minus 15. Both of those should equal the same thing. 5 times negative 16 plus 17 gives me the answer negative 63. 3 times negative 16 minus 15 gives me negative 63. So that means I solved my variable correctly. Now, it can be a little confusing when we're doing the inverse operation so many times on both sides. So I want to show you the box method using this very same problem. The very first thing I want to do is I want to figure out where my variables are. I want to figure out where my constants are. And I create a box for my variables on the left and a box for my constants on the right. So when I move my 5x, you see this line is a solid line. It stayed on the same side of that equal sign. So I don't change the sign of the number, but my 3x here, I dotted and crossed the line. So instead of a positive 3x on the left, I ended up with a negative 3x. And our constants, my 15 stayed on the same side, so it stayed with the negative that's in front of it. And my positive 17 became a negative 17 when it crossed the line. So anytime you cross the equal sign, you change the sign because you're working with inverse operations. When I combine these two by adding 5x plus 3x, that gives me 2x, and negative 17 plus negative 15 gives me a negative 32. The very last thing I do is I divide. I look at the coefficient in front of the variable and I divide by 2 and I get a negative 16. So I'm going to show both methods here on both sides, then I'm going to let you try it on your own. So the very first thing, I'm going to figure out my x's and my constants. And I'm going to get my constants over on the same side. I'm going to start by subtracting 14. I'm left with 3x. And 1 minus 14, I think it's a negative 13. Yep, it's a negative 13. It's equal to negative 13 minus 2x. Now to get rid of this x on the right side, I'm going to make it a zero pair by adding 2x. And those cross each other out, and I've got 5x is equal to a negative 13. I definitely don't know this off the top of my head. Negative 13. I'm going to divide that by the coefficient there. And I've got that x is equal to negative 2.6. Okay, I'm going to plug that back in, times 3 plus 14. And I'm left with 6.2 on this side. And 1 minus 2 times negative 2.6. 6.2. So I did it right. So let's look at how we would do this with the box method. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 boxes on either side of my equal sign. I'm going to have a box over here and a box over here. And I'm going to look and see how many variables I have. Well, I have 1, 2, so that means I'm going to create 2 boxes over here. And I'm going to look at my constants. I have 2, so I'm going to create 2 boxes on the right side. My 3x doesn't cross this blue line, so it's going to stay the same. But this negative 2x, it does cross the line, so it's going to go from a negative to a positive. My variables, my 1 is going to stay the same, but because it crosses the line, my 14 becomes a negative. I'm going to add these together. I've got 5x, and then 1 minus 14 is negative 13. The very last step is I have to get the variable by itself, and I do that by dividing by 5 on both sides. I'm left with x is equal to negative 2.6. We've already solved that. So you can decide which method you want to do. I prefer you try the box method today because I know there's a lot of times that in the inverse method we get the steps confused about positive and negative, and we just forget to carry some negative signs. So I would like for you to try the box method, but it's really your choice. If you have more questions, please look at the guided practice.